Tips with Tony. Tips with Tony. All about nutrition from your favorite dietitian. Everything you need to digest in your mind. Tips with Tony. Tips with Tony. Making you healthier one bite at a time. With Tony. Woo.
Hello and welcome to the Tips with Tony podcast. I'm Tony Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time. Our next guest is someone super special. Her name is Kelsey Chapman, and I'm going to allow her to introduce herself in a second. But she is a soon-to-be author, which is so exciting because we can struggle but also love the process of book writing together. She's an awesome collaborator, connector. She's going to talk to you all about how she became an entrepreneur, why she's an entrepreneur, and why she's so passionate about inspiring other entrepreneurs. So I'm really excited to have Kelsey on the podcast. Welcome, Kelsey.
Thank you for having me, Tony. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm very excited as well. The first question I always ask my guests is to simply just introduce yourself by sharing who you are, what you do, and most importantly, why you do what you do.
Yeah, so I'm Kelsey. I am a creator above all else. I just love to create, whether it's a business or a project or something for my house. Like that is just who I am. And as you mentioned, I am a connector. So I have always been entrepreneurial since I was a little girl. And I don't say that loosely. Like I'd be running a car wash and making $60 at 12 and feeling like, oh, this is for the movie theater tonight. And I'm not going to feel bad spending it. But the common thread has always been, what can I do to bring people together? And then what can I learn and share that with someone? So anything I do, I probably will end up teaching because I love to learn the shortcuts, the most efficient ways, the most budget conscious ways, because sometimes just because things have a high price tag on it doesn't mean it's like the best quality. And so I love to find ways to make everything I do accessible for my friends. Maybe that's my friends around my table or my friends on the internet. But if I learn it, I'm going to share it. So that's really what I do. And I do that because I've had a lot of people invest in me. I love this phrase. You know, I've had mentors come before me who have helped me shortcut the distance by them sharing their tips, reaching behind them, and telling me what they knew. They helped me shortcut the distance. I got to where I'm going faster because they were generous with their information. So That's really my why.
That's so powerful. And it's so true that we can do, it's not that we're not capable of doing things on our own, but there is so much power in investing in somebody who's like one step ahead or two or three or even four steps ahead of you. There's so much more insight. And although you still have to do the personal work, it's a lot easier to like have a really clear kind of roadmap and kind of an idea in how to get there rather than like going in completely blind.
Yeah.
So I love that. So I guess for like, I'm sure throughout the years of anybody who's either, you know, trusted you in their process of whether it's growing a business or where you've trusted others in helping to help grow your own business, like, is there a kind of like a common theme that you see within people, maybe within yourself when you were maybe struggling to kind of come up with ideas, or what you've helped clients with, like when they're trying to come up with like this new idea to start a business, like what do you find is like the patterns that kind of get them stuck?
I think, as we all know, imposter syndrome is a big pattern, but like, it doesn't go away. Every new level you level up, you're going to face it again. I've been facing it again with a new offer I have. And so I think that it's just important to normalize that messy middle feeling. It gets harder before it gets better. A lot of the time there's like a calm, or there's really a storm before the calm. A lot of the time it's kind of just really that wrestling season. You know, we love to watch a movie about Steve Jobs or so-and-so and look at the end of their life and everything they accomplished. But like, there were some like hellacious years in the messy middle. And so I think it's just important to talk about that because everyone goes through it. But when you're going through it, you feel like you're alone and maybe you're not qualified and maybe you should just quit and maybe it'd be better to go back to a day job or to whatever else. And so I think it's just important to normalize that. And then second, I think it's important to surround yourself with a home team who will pull out the gold in you when you really don't have the energy to keep going. I think whether that's friends or a mentor, it's just important because especially if you're in the online space, like people don't get what you do. And if you're entrepreneurial at all, or like dreaming of something that's not conventional, which if it's not a day job, it's probably not conventional.
Right.
I remember being 3 years into a business generating $20,000 a month. And someone was like, are you a fashion blogger? And it's like, no, I haven't. I did start with a fashion blog 3 years ago, and those are very profitable as well. But just because I have an online presence doesn't mean I'm a fashion blogger. Like, right. That's so fascinating that that's what you thought I've been doing for 3 years. We're best friends. And so sometimes people just don't get what you do if it's not a conventional, like I'm starting a restaurant in my local community job.
Right. No, that's so true. And I'm laughing because I feel like my messaging is so clear and I'm a dietitian and I provide online nutrition coaching. And I still get questions like, or comments like, I wish I could work with you, but I live in Montana, let's say. And like, I'm like, I do nutrition. It's a virtual practice. It's 100% online. I didn't know that was not apparent. Like, I actually can help you, but actually, or like people where I think my messaging is very clear. Like I don't believe in fad diets or quick fixes. And I'll get comments like, can you tell me how, like the best detox tea to drink? And I'm just like, have I been speaking to a wall? Yeah,
did you miss everything I'm about?
Yeah. But I realized that because everyone's are going through like kind of their own stuff, it's like, it's great that they come to me because they like know that's what I do. But unless you're like really like kind of zoned in and focused, like you have your own life, you have your own things. And so I think that's really important to kind of share is that, it's true. Like you probably feel the part of the imposter syndrome is probably just feeling like no one else has really done it before. So it's not as easy or comfortable to kind of share,
Totally. And
so it's interesting.
For me, I have like my best friends, my home team around my table in my day-to-day life, but I have some friends that are just as close. I just don't see them every day, but I vox them. Voxer, for those of you who are like, what's that? It's like a walkie-talkie that are my business online friends that I met at a retreat or something like that in a Facebook group that we just connected. We saw some synergy there. Maybe we hopped on a call to just swap tips once and realized we want to be real life friends. Yeah. And those are the people who, maybe don't have the same history as my friends at my dinner table in my hometown, but they get what I do a little more. And that's really bonding. And it's what you need on the days where you're like, I'm throwing in the towel, I'm done.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think like any goal, whatever you're striving for, it's important to be part of a support group who's on a similar path than you. And so and one thing you do really well is you connect with just like entrepreneurs in general. It doesn't mean that they have to be a fashion blogger, a dietitian, a book writer or whatever. It's literally they could be doing anything, but they understand because they have maybe like an online business or an online platform or something that is just a little bit against the grain. And you have this amazing ability of being able to connect with people, even if there's differences. How do you do that? And what is the benefit to connecting and collaborating in that way?
Yeah. So as we were talking earlier, like my real life looks like people around my table that are different than me. They might be a different religion, a different political association, and that's what I want. I do not want to live in a homogenous bubble of all people like me. If I got to the end of my life and that's what had happened, I'd feel like I missed it, And so for me, it's only natural for that to extend to what I do in my business. I want to collaborate and link arms and build bridges with people across all kind of streams of business. And so, that can be challenging. Sometimes that means, that post they did just really triggered me or annoyed me. But that doesn't sum up the whole of who they are. That's one facet of who they are. And you know what? Overall, I really like who they are. I don't like that. Now, if we're talking like hate, then we're talking about a different thing. But just a different opinion or angle on something, we can work with that. And I think the reward is greater than the risk or the disconnect there. I will also say, with having lots of different kinds of friends, you do risk like more friend breakups because you're putting yourself out there. You're choosing to build connection amongst differences, whether that's simply a different business or a total belief system difference, But again, I think the reward is greater than the risk. 10 times over, 100 times over.
Yeah. I mean, because I think there's a lot of power in having a conversation where you don't 100% agree, right? So you can have, conversations where, because you know what I think it does, like you said, if it's polar opposites and like there's just everyone's in their own way and like they're not open to like hearing the other side, that's one thing. But if it's kind of just like small differences, I think it's really interesting to like hear how people grew up, their perspective on things, and getting to understand them better. And then I think it helps you explain yourself more complete in a way that helps other people to understand, which is only going to make you better at your own personal, whether it's marketing or just knowing yourself. It's a really powerful thing. Cause like you said, if everybody's always agreeing and, it's powerful to have an alignment conversation as well. But if that's all you're having, nothing really challenges you, you're never really going to grow.
Well, I mean, we've all met those people who it's like, whoa, you've really never ventured outside your bubble. You only have people in your life who are just like you. Mm-hmm. I think we can all agree, like, we've met that person and it's really not like what any of us are aspiring to be. We look at the dynamic people who can have a conversation with anyone, but how you have a conversation with anyone is practicing with people who think or operate, function differently than you. And so I think it just makes you better. It's going to make you a better business owner. It's going to make you a better just human being. And it comes with its challenges. I just think those challenges are worth it.
Yeah, I agree. So let's talk about, you are in the process of writing a book. And before we talk about your book, I do want to just say thank you for letting me know that it's taking you longer than you had anticipated, because that's currently what I'm experiencing right now in the moment. So it is a little refreshing. So in this part, when we talk about connecting, sometimes it's nice to talk to someone who's in a similar process, although it's not exactly the same. It's similar, and it helps. It's comforting. It's comforting to know that, like, I'm not the only one who thought their homework was never going to be done. That was such a funny analogy that you said. I literally always feel like I have homework to do. It's like it's like grad school, like literally never ends.
Totally.
Yeah. But anyways, let's talk about you. Tell us about this book. What is the purpose of it? What inspired you to write it? What should people expect from reading it?
Well, as we just referenced, for those of you listening, Dax Shepard always says, choosing to be an author is like choosing to have homework forever. I mean, I thought I was past homework when I was out of college, but then I just opted for a career where I'd have it forever. At least it goes away for like 6-month stretches. So I literally got started 3 years ago, which I'd been dreaming of writing a book since I was a little girl. And I launched a magazine, and that took all my creative energy for a while. I thought I might never write again. After that, I was like, I just killed, like I zapped every creative juice I had. I took a long break from that. And then I woke up 3 years ago in January and was like, I think it's time to start writing. But I didn't really know what. And so I'd always written these essays. Like my favorite author is Shauna Niequist, if you know who that is. But I love essay style writing about a general topic. It just like brings my soul joy. So I kind of thought I'd go in that direction. But what came out of me, that as I just started not putting pen to paper because I do not manually write my books, but as I started typing, started kind of weaving the theme together of mentorship, which is truly the least sexy book topic ever. It was a little bit hard to sell to publishers because mentorship is truly unsexy, but it's powerful. And so I just started writing about all these women who had invested in my life, hence my deep passion for sharing what I know with people. And I worked on a proposal first, and I, got 2 full chapters out, basically put together a whole marketing proposal around it. And when it got picked up, I started writing, and it took me, I had about a 6-month window to write it, but then you have like 9 months of editing back and forth from there. And here we are 3 years later, it's about to be on a shelf. And
so exciting.
Yeah.
Oh, God. So tell us a little bit, I'm sure it's so hard because it's hard. I feel like when you work so hard in a book, like if someone asked me my favorite chapter, I feel like I'm setting you up for like a really hard question, but I am curious, like, is there like a chapter that like you're super excited about? Is there maybe a section you can kind of give us a little bit of a insight on, or, tell us more, like give us a little bit of a sneak peek.
I think I'm torn between 2 at the moment. One you can listen to on my website, and it's already recorded. And that's Linnell. She was my best friend's mom. But there are parts of our story that we really didn't discover until I was in like middle school. And it turns out she was engaged to my dad, and my dad ran off on a vacation with my mom. My mom didn't know. They like mended their fences later. And why the heck would she choose to invest in me? And so how inconvenient it was when I walked into her life as the best friend of her daughter, yet she never held who my dad was against me. We lived like 7 houses down too. So just truly inconvenient. Like I have an ex I refer to as Voldemort. I would never want to handle weekend drop-offs and sleepovers with his children. No, thank you.
Yeah.
They could have just nipped that and been like, we're not going to foster this friendship. But they did. And she always put like what was most beneficial to her personally aside to invest in me. And to me, I'm like, wow, that's what changes culture. Like that's very sacrificial investment, sacrificial love. She ended up with a great husband and is probably happier than she would have been with my dad, whose Instagram handle is Fun Panther. So you get an idea of who he is. He's a good time, just not very committal. And so, Linnell truly invested so much in me. But then I also think about Harriet, who really just modeled showing, not telling. So I'd never heard this phrase before I started writing the book, but my editor used it a lot. Show them, don't tell them, because telling is very like explicit, mapped out, color inside these lines. But if I show you and I model it for you, that's even more memorable than just being told what to do. Totally. And so Harriet really modeled for me what I wanted. And it wasn't as much of it was probably one of my least formal mentoring relationships, but watching from like a front row seat changed my life. Yeah. And for me, it shows me the power of letting people in, being imperfect, let it all hang out when they're over at my house. I mean, maybe not all hang out, but just showing up for the people in my life, and they're going to learn something along the way. They'll probably learn some bad things about me too, but that's okay.
Yeah, but I think there's so much power in vulnerability that I don't think you can fit. I don't think you could spiritually, physically even, because I think we emotionally get in our ways physically. So like we can't grow unless we're willing to get vulnerable, to admit our flaws, to speak it out loud. I think there's a lot of power. It's like you could know something about yourself that you want to improve and you want to change, but until you speak it out into the world or you tell someone, I don't think it's really that it's really challenging. You can change it, but it's just really hard to do that. And I think letting it out there is just like the start.
Totally. And I think a big theme throughout my book is like, your mentor is not going to be perfect. We all have issues, man. And so they might be killing it in one department and have some room to grow in another. And I think for us to all sit around and wait for, Oprah to be our mentor is an unlikely expectation to have. Now, by all means, if y'all can go get Oprah to be your mentor, that's awesome. I celebrate you, but it's really unlikely. Right. So what does it look like to have everyday women in your life who are imperfect? Not that Oprah's perfect, but we put people on a pedestal. Yeah. And what does it look like to have everyday imperfect people invest in you? And sometimes you can watch a mentor and be like, oh, for her to have it amazing over here in this facet of her life, she sacrificed a little over there. So you can also learn from that. Mm-hmm. And so not to hold up a flashlight to any parts of my mentors' lives that were imperfect. I didn't do that in the book, but I learned a lot from just watching and not expecting perfection.
Right. Right. Well, yeah, because I think that perfectionism screws us up. I say that all the time, particularly in nutrition, but in life, like you can't expect perfectionism because you will always be disappointed. Because also too, what's perfect to you and what's perfect to me are two different things. Right. Our perception of perfect is what's even distorted as well. Totally. So that, so that this, oh my God, this is so good. It's not ironic. It's not a coincidence, but the quote of the day today, I have this calendar that I leave on my desk that I just flip through, and it's the day. Today's Wednesday, November 4th. And the quote is, "We relish news on our heroes, forgetting that we are extraordinary to somebody too." And I think what you just described was looking up to people like Oprah, who is my inspiration. I want to talk show. I literally love her.
You do. Hey, be my mentor, Oprah.
Yeah, literally, just put her in the universe. I'll take Oprah. I'll take, oh my God, there's just so many people that I look up to. But at the same time, it's interesting because when I read that, actually what I heard it as, even though I read it one way, I heard it as we are extraordinary too, period. Meaning we can be the hero. Yeah. Right? To ourselves. But then when you reach to somebody else, but also then somebody else is looking at you too. So either way, the point is that these heroes can be there to inspire us, but at the end of the day, it's kind of up to us to make that change and to also recognize that we are influencing the people around us. Like you said, kind of just by leading it by example, people are watching.
Yeah. And if it's one person, that one person is worth it. You change the world one person at a time. If we all invested in one person, a few steps behind us, it really would change culture for the better.
100%. So, okay. So what advice would you give to someone who is looking for a mentor? And that could be in business. It can be in fitness. It could be in nutrition. It could be in life. Totally. What advice would you give to someone who's looking for that?
Well, I like how you just said that because it can be in the facet you're looking. They might not be crushing it in every single department, but if they're crushing it in the facet of life that you want to grow in, that's all you need. Right. And so I always look for someone who is a few steps ahead of me. And often there are 15 people doing it, but I also like to really see if there's that relational match. And I think we all know what it feels like to feel out of alignment with someone investing in us. So I've certainly had some failed mentoring relationships. No one told me that finding a mentor can be like dating. I thought I was done dating. Now I've got to do it with friends in a new city and a mentor. God. But I think, testing the water, seeing if it's a good fit. I've certainly had people be not a great fit. And I'm like, okay, let's nip this at the bud. But when I found my business mentor, for instance, there was something about her essence that I was like, I want that. She's really generous in a business space that feels very stingy. And I want that generosity, even if it means I'm not learning something else from her. That's what I want most. And so I looked for kind of that feeling, which is hard to put a finger on, of this is aligned, versus that feeling kind of on a date where it's is this I don't think this is my match. I'm gonna have to swipe whatever left Tinder thing on after I started dating. So who knows?
No, I think that's so true. And I think that I think energy I think I don't think people realize like you're investing in energy. Like I want to get excited to get on a call with my mentors.
Totally.
And if I'm not excited, that means that either one, like I need to do work with myself or like they're not a good fit.
And they can feel that too. They would rather be with people that are energetic matches.
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%.
Because I know the feeling of mentoring someone and being like, this is not a fit and I don't know how to tell them.
Right. No, and it's a very, and that's like, we didn't choose to be entrepreneurs to work with someone that it's not aligned. Like I did that. Like I did that in hospital settings. I did that when I provided, I was paid a salary and my nutrition services were free. Like I didn't have a say in like who could come into my office and all those things. Like we've positioned ourselves in a way to choose to work with people that inspire us and we inspire them. And it's a good vibe, good energy sort of situation. So when you have, that person that it just like doesn't click, you're doing each other a disservice by not like having that conversation.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah. So, okay. So, I mean, considering you've had some really, it sounds like you've got a lot of mentors over the year, probably learned a lot of lessons. What was probably like the greatest piece of advice that a mentor has taught you?
Oh, man. I think that it's like you don't have to be perfect to invest in the person coming behind you. So start before you're ready, because I think most of my mentors, except the 2 business mentors I wrote about in my book, most of my mentors were people already in my life, and they didn't expect they weren't Bible study leaders or community group leaders or like volunteer, whatever group is how you meet people. That wasn't them. They were just normal women who were kind of surprised. And even like Harriet, I write about in her chapter, I could feel a tone of like, why are you asking me?
Mm-hmm.
But I knew she wondered, why me though? Like, what do I have to teach you? But I was gaining so much. And so it reinforces to me, I don't have to think I'm perfectly qualified. If they want to learn from me, there's something I can pass down. And some days I'll get it wrong. Mm-hmm. But I'm not promising that I have it all figured out. I'm just willing to pass down what I know and share it, and they can chew the meat and spit out the bones. It kind of takes the pressure off of being perfect before you show up for someone else. So just start before you're ready.
Yeah, that's powerful. So if you had someone who was a new business owner, do you think that's like a piece of advice you would pass down to them? Or do you have like kind of your own piece of advice that you would give to a new business owner?
I would say start before you're ready, but keep in mind, I'm a free spirit. I'm not type A. So like a type A person is hearing that and they're like, but I've got all these things to check off. I'm like, release it into the world and perfect it along the way.
Yeah, that is so me. And I get us in trouble. I don't know.
It get us in trouble. But I do think the type A listeners need to hear that, because there is always something to learn, a new program to take, someone you need to work with, a website you need to build, a logo you need to get, a copywriting. It's never done.
Yeah, it's never done.
So start before you're ready and perfect it along the way, and be willing to make huge mistakes. Or willing to fail. That's not even it's not even because you made a mistake. For instance, I had a business disappear overnight because of algorithms, $20,000 to zero overnight. And I didn't do anything to make that happen. The only pivot I could have made was something I didn't want to do, ads management. No, thank you. And so I closed that business, and it's not because I did something wrong or I failed, but I still felt like a failure. I thought, what are people going to think of me? I had this business. This is embarrassing. But just start over. Every entrepreneur you're watching a documentary of or reading about had their own seasons like that. And so it's easy to say, don't be scared of them. But I will tell you, like, I've lived it the long, hard way, and you will recover. It's painful. But it also, like, I like who I am on the other side of that more. So it will evoke powerful life lessons as well. Like, you won't regret it.
Yeah, that's so powerful. It's so powerful. I think an entrepreneur, to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to be willing to be unsuccessful.
Totally. That is good.
Yeah, I just realized that just came out.
That's good.
You can take it.
Put that in your book.
But I'm not, so that's what's so funny. Like, I don't, yeah, well, but you could take that one. Cause I don't work with, I mean, maybe like I told you, like down the line, I might consider like helping people with their like nutrition business or whatever, but it's just right now it's not on my heart. So I'm not going to, you can take that one. That's for entrepreneurs. So to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to be willing to be unsuccessful.
Totally.
But you could also, you know what I've learned through entrepreneurship is, I mean, all the lessons I've learned are life lessons. Like that is a life lesson that, you know, and you can't grow. Your business will only grow as long as someone else had said that before. Like your business only grows as much as you allow it or you grow as a person. And
yes,
it is just so true. Like, so that actually brings a good question, you know, through growing multiple businesses and doing all that you've done, like what sort of personal development work did you have to do, if you're okay with kind of sharing that, to get to where you are? Because you are very successful, but it doesn't just happen overnight. So a lot of it is, trial and error, being willing to fail, like all that stuff. But there is a spirit. I can only just share what my experiences was. I'm curious what your thoughts are, but there is definitely a huge component of it is being willing to grow as a person, like on a level of spirituality, of like just immense growth on the inside. So
I agree with you. I'd say it's a majority of internal work. So I've been in therapy for 12 years since I turned 18. And that is a monetary investment in seasons where it was tight. I mean, I prioritized that because for me, before I went out on my own, I worked for like some entrepreneurs. I actually worked for 2 before I went out on my own. And I was like, they have a really powerful message, but their team is dying around them. And for me, that would be another thing if I got to the end of my life and like I turned over a team every 6 months. My team never liked me. They never enjoyed what they were doing. They could never get behind my vision. I'd feel like I was missing it. And so those 2 roles were very powerful for me of like, wow, both of their messages are actually incredible. They're overall pretty great people, although they're horrible to work for. And if I run a business at some point, I want to be able to steward the people helping serve my vision so that they feel alive doing this work, because you can never ask someone to carry your vision more than you're willing to do it. And so you need to rally them to keep longevity. But if you're not an emotionally healthy leader, they're going to leave for something better because they're not married to your vision. And so for me, I've done a lot of work because I know there are parts of me that are difficult, that are scattered, that can be all over the place, that can be I can be free spirit, loosey goosey till I zero in and am a monster. And so how do I work on these things? Fear has been a huge part of my business. Like I really struggle with fear in every area of life. It's like Final Destination in my mind. But I've had to really address those things in therapy. And then also I've really prioritized a lot of mindset coaching. I think strategy is also worth investing in. I've typically invested in both mindset and strategy at the same time. If you're at a place where that's not financially viable for your dream, then pick one and alternate next year on the other. I traded for seasons when it wasn't wise for me to financially invest in that. I needed to not spend that money. I was like, what can I do for you to get a meeting with you? And so I really prioritize that. I've seen so many results in my life from the mindset side of it, because stewarding your dream really comes down to like, do you feel capable of carrying it? Do you have like limiting beliefs about your own abilities and success that are holding you back? And I think we all do. It's natural. I mean, I think to be an entrepreneur, we all wrestle with, first and foremost, the idea of who do you think you are to do this or whatever in some form. Overall, I don't really relate to that phrase, but sometimes I will think through what I'm like frustrated by in the season or what I feel like is holding me back. And if the the root of whatever it is that, even though I didn't realize it was that. So therapy, mindset work, spending money to invest in your dream. We don't go start a restaurant in town and think that we'll break even in month one.
Right.
You know? And so starting something maybe online or that's non-conventional, sometimes people aren't thinking through like, oh, this is an investment. I'm not saying spend $30,000 on something you don't need that bad, right. But knowing that it might cost you a little bit of investment to get to where you want to go. And I think a lot of that investment comes down to like how you steward your soul to carry it.
Yeah. So good and so true. I want to be mindful of your time. Kelsey, this has been so awesome. I love your energy. I can see why a lot of people choose to invest and work with you, because I'm big on energy. I feel like that's half of it. Like, you know, our day-to-day can become so mundane, and like we need that person to just like pick us up and remind us like, oh no, I actually care about this. I actually want this for myself. And like, just because I don't feel it in the day-to-day doesn't mean that it's not there and it's not present. So thank you for bringing that out in us and the listeners. Like this has been so great. Yeah. Thank you for having me. You're welcome. My energy is just a reflection of you. I'm literally just peeing off of yours. We've got some good vibes going. Yeah. I'm so excited. So we've recently did a little mini kind of collaboration, which was so cool. You got like these course bundles together. I know that another one's going to launch, the one I'm not participating in, maybe another one in December. I don't know if you want to share with people about those things, or just in general. I definitely obviously would love for you to kind of share where people can connect with you, follow you, maybe get on. I can't remember if you said to get a copy of the book, like to get on the pre-sale, is that available yet? Or it is. Awesome. Okay. So I've got bundles every month. I put that together, really short spiel, because I knew what it was like to bootstrap it when I started out. When I started out, I worked at Starbucks. I had a college degree, but I was finding myself. And so I was living off of like $1,200. But I mean, me and my husband worked at Starbucks. He was still in college. I was finding myself. So we were literally balling on a shoestring budget. Here I was starting my business. He's like, do your thing, just make it back. And so for me, I really care about that entrepreneur who really can't invest in that $3,000 program quite yet. Right. And for the creators involved to know they're getting leads, they're able to sell something that puts new people in their pipeline and introduces them to new audiences because they're cross-pollinating with 20 other creators. And so it just felt like, how can I create something that's a win for everyone? And this feels like it's it. Yeah. So that's what the bundles are. You usually get 20 to 25 courses in a $99 bundle. Even in my brokest days, I could sell a few sweaters from a closet and make it happen. So I think anyone can come up with that for the most part. But also, the book is just at kelseychapman.com/book, because I am moving into launch phase, and there's some really cool pre-order bonuses right now for that. So I'd love to have you in my community. Come on over. Yeah, awesome. Okay, so I'll put all those links in the show notes. Is there any last minute comments, topics, or anything that you wanted to add before we wrap up today? Oh, man. Well, like I said, thank you for having me. And just for those listening, start before you're ready. I have launched new ideas over and over and over again, and I never feel ready. And I drag my feet and I get stressed. I get scared. But once you release it into the world, you can do all that perfecting along the way. You can make it better with every iteration. Mm-hmm. Amy, I don't know if this is relevant for your audience, but Amy Porterfield, the queen of marketing, talks about launches where she had one customer. It's normal. We're going to figure it out as we go. It's painful, but that's what you have community for. And use that as feedback. Totally. Don't just be like, oh, it wasn't a success and move on. Like, what? Why wasn't it what you expected? What could you do differently next time? Maybe it wasn't the idea. Maybe it was the way that you put the idea out there. Maybe you didn't promote it long enough. Or maybe you promoted it too long. Who knows? Like, totally. So many things to look at. There are, and we're all figuring it out as we go. Even that person in,
whatever facet of life you're looking up to, they don't have it all figured out either. We love Oprah, and she's got things she doesn't have figured out, you know? And so I think we're all learning, and the more we link arms, the further we'll go. And so, I think that's all I've got for today. But
that's perfect. That's so perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This was such a treat.
Oh, you're so welcome. All right, guys. So definitely go give Kelsey a follow. Check out her book. Check out the website. If you're not already subscribed to the Tips with Tony podcast, definitely hit that subscribe button. And if you are feeling really generous, give us a nice little review. Maybe screenshot the episode, share it on your story, tag me, tag Kelsey. Thank you so much for coming back and listening to the podcast. We really appreciate you being here. As always, I'm Tony Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time.